and we move on.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to recognize the Vice Chancellor, Director of Agriculture Business and Environment Office, USAID Kenya. I'd like to ask all of you to stand as we go to pray, to commit this day and the day tomorrow to the Lord for guidance. Let's pray together. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you, Lord, for this morning. Thank you for the journey mercies, the traveling mercies that you have provided to each one of us. Thank you for this opportunity to meet together as stakeholders in this worthy cause of ministering to the smallholder farmer, shaping his direction. Father, we thank you for everyone represented here. We thank you for the resource persons. We thank you for the leaders of this team, management from different institutions. Pray, God, as we begin today and this morning, we begin with you, Lord. Guide us, give us good deliberations, bless us and give us even safety through the day as we travel back. Pray, God, that the objectives for this conference shall be met through your guidance and your leadership. For it is in Jesus' name I pray and believe. Amen. Thank you.
I want to call upon the chair of the first session, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, Egerton University, Professor Rose Monya, to lead us in the session. Professor Monya.
Thank you very much. The representative of the CS, the Deputy Secretary, Deputy Director, USAID, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Extension, Egerton University, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You need to wake up. I know some of you have been traveling and you might be tired, but today is a very great day for us at Egerton University because we have to meet here to see how we can transform the lives of our young people, old and young, to be able to take agriculture more seriously and be able to become agricultural entrepreneurs in Kenya that will change the lives of our people in this country. Tegemeo has been here for a long time, ever since I started Egerton University in the late 80s, and has been very instrumental for Egerton University and the country at large in changing policies, the agricultural policies. And I believe they are making a difference in our country. We need to support them, we need to work with them, and we need to make sure that we bring whatever is disturbing us to them so that they can change it into policies that will help the country to move forward. Many times we have said that our students, particularly in our institutions of higher learning, many young people are shifting to other areas, and they are not taking agriculture from the secondary schools more seriously, so that when they get into the university, they don't see anything more than a computer or those other things. I'm not saying they are not important, but we want to put the country into agricultural perspective to make sure that whoever is in it is making a difference. And so we at Egerton University, despite the other subjects that we do, we focus in agriculture. Some time back when I was going for my training in the US, the focus was agriculture. So if you really wanted to go to the US through USAID, which was my sponsor, you had to go through agriculture. And it was, that time it was a smallholder agricultural training. And maybe some of you went through that program for their training. I did. And we would like that to be looked into more seriously and see how we can make our smallholders out there really produce more and be able to sustain this country agriculturally. And it is not just the production. Personally, I have always told the Tegemeo that we have more to look into. There are 3 things that we really need to look into. As we produce, we also need to think of how to market. Marketing is a very important area in the production of agricultural produce, because when the farmers produce so much and they cannot sell the next year, then they kind of relax. And I think that's not good. We should be able to assist them to market the little that they produce so that we can be able to make them happy wherever they are. Not only that, but in the dry areas, the other thing which we need to look into is the distribution of this food. So that when we produce maize in Kitale, which is the granary of maize production in Kenya, then it can be transported easily to Kitui or to Northeastern or to Turkana. So if distribution is not looked into properly, then whatever we are doing will be wasted and will be eaten by the rodents and the pests, and we will not be doing a good job to the country. So we need to look at different issues that are affecting our agricultural production and also affecting our consumption in the country. So today, I'm honored to be the chair of this particular session, and with those few remarks, I'm going to ask Professor Goland Mwangi to take the lead and give us the gist of why we are here. Professor Goland Mwangi, please.
Madam Anne Onyango, who is representing the Cabinet Secretary, and who is also the Director of Policy, Research and what? And regulations. I want to say a big welcome. Dr. Michael Jones, Chief Office of Economic Growth, who is also representing the USAID Director, Professor Rose Mwanya, who is our Vice Chancellor Designate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. According to the program which you have, mine was just to give welcoming remarks. And in Kenya, welcoming remark just means I say karibu. So nasema karibuni. But a few minutes ago, I was also asked to give some opening remarks because the Vice Chancellor who was to do that had just sent a message that he is not coming. And I don't know what he wanted to say. So you'll excuse me if I stray. And I will say a few things concerning the conference, which is entitled Transforming Kenya's Smallholder Agriculture in the Context of Climate Change, Devolution, and Increasing Land Constraints. And as you know, in Africa, and Kenya in particular, agriculture is extremely important, both in terms of social and economic development. 2 out of 3 Africans rely on it for a living. And we know that most of Kenya's poorest people live in the rural areas and depend mostly on agriculture for food and income. These people are the most vulnerable to hunger and dependency on food relief. In Kenya, smallholders are approximately 80% of the farmers and therefore play a key role in development of the agricultural sector. Transforming this sector, which is a priority of the Kenya government, requires an environment in which farmers can practice business-oriented farming to produce affordable, market-competitive, and consumer-friendly products in terms of quality and food safety. It also requires an effective model of extension technology delivery system, as well as climate-smart agriculture, which simultaneously increases productivity, strengthens resilience to climate variability, mitigates greenhouse gas emissions, and contributes to food security. It further requires use of seasonal climate forecast in agricultural decision making. I want to say a few things concerning the major challenges facing smallholder farmers. The major challenges slowing down transformation of the sector includes low agricultural productivity and increasing land fragmentation into small farm units, partly due to rising population, rural real estate development, and rapid urbanization. Land fragmentation makes it harder for smallholder farmers to benefit from economies of scale and to change from subsistence to commercial farming, where break-even is difficult in some enterprises. However, intensive production can ensure profitable farming, but to do it well, proper training is needed, right from farmers to policymakers, to make them fully understand their role in addressing the consequences of land fragmentation. Other challenges facing smallholder farmers include rising cost of land, which makes access to land a reserve of the affluent in society. Other challenges are limited use of farm machinery for making work easier and more cost-effective, unaffordable farm credit, poor access to timely extension advice, and improved technologies. Disorganized and unreliable markets, lack of adequate market information, climate variability and change, as well as soil infertility and inadequate soil moisture. Over 80% of our smallholder farmers are concentrated in less than 20% of Kenya's landmass, as the rest of the country is either arid or semi-arid. People who move to the ASAR areas in search of greener pastures lack the knowledge and skills to manage the fragile ecosystem that is ASAR. To succeed in the new environment, they need adaptation skills, which only experts in agroclimatology and the local people can provide. In this context, how can policymakers and scientists help them deal with the soil infertility and limited soil moisture? I'm posing some of these questions so that as you deliberate in this conference, you can provide answers. So the question I want to ask now is, what are the reasons for having this conference? Egerton University, under which Tegemeo Directive falls, conducts research geared towards improving smallholder agriculture with the support of many people like USAID and other players who have been supporting our university in development. So we have organized this conference to give participants an opportunity to reflect together on how well we are doing as a country in our effort to transform smallholder agriculture. And the question that we should be asking, how, for instance, can Kenya transform its smallholder agriculture despite the increasing land constraints? We know there are challenges associated with climate change. Kenya is particularly vulnerable to climate change, variability, and disaster risks due to its limited adaptive capacity, poverty level, and development challenges. It experiences adverse weather with increasing frequency, which poses a burden to sustainable development and is a threat and impediment to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. In Kenya, climate change lengthens the growing season during the short rains of October-December, while decreasing the long rains of March to May. This effect has implications on crop and livestock production, which are key livelihood sources for many Kenyans. Farming cycles in Kenya, as you are probably aware, have reduced from 20 years between 1964 and 84 to 12 years between 1984 and 96 to 2 years between 2004 to 2006, and they have been happening annually from 2007, necessitating government distribution of relief food annually for 3.5 million to 4.5 million people. Temperature changes and the increasing flood and drought are likely to have profound negative consequences on smallholder agriculture. Climate change is affecting the supply and quality of water, not only in Kenya, but in the whole of Africa. About 300 million people, representing over 40% in sub-Saharan Africa, currently lack access to safe drinking water. And the situation is likely to get worse. Smallholder farmers suffer the largest proportion of losses from climate variability and change, both of which are human-induced global problems. Humans are responsible for losses in biodiversity as a result of excessive extraction of natural resources, forest clearance for pasture or cropland. We have large-scale monocropping and use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, which are major problems. In 2002, 13 million people in Southern Africa needed food relief due to drought. And by 2020, yields from rain-fed agriculture in some African countries could drop by up to 50%, and crop net revenues could fall by as much as 90%, with the small-scale farmers being the most affected. In most parts of Kenya, ladies and gentlemen, the temperature has gradually increased since 1960. Use of irrigation, climate-smart agriculture, and crop insurance have been suggested as suitable adaptive mechanisms. Agriculture as agriculture that simultaneously increases productivity, strengthens resilience to climate variability, mitigates greenhouse gas emissions, and contributes to achieving food security and development objectives. An FAO pilot study on climate-smart agriculture conducted in Kaptumo in Nandi County shows that integration of crop livestock systems can be climate friendly when combined with agroforestry and improved pasture management. How viable are these adaptation mechanisms, and are there alternative options for addressing climate variability, change, and predictability? I want to say something concerning devolution, which is covered in the conference. Implementing government policy on devolution, many functions in the agricultural sector were devolved to county government to speed up development at the grassroots. To its credit, devolution has brought key agricultural support services to the people, leading to improved infrastructure, particularly rural roads, which have improved smallholder farmers' access to markets. Many common interest groups have transformed themselves into cooperative societies, which are legal entities giving members an opportunity to benefit from economies of scale in procurement of goods and services and in selling their farm products. Largely because of devolution, most local leaders now feel empowered to fast-track development in their respective areas. On the negative side, devolution has come with new challenges that must be firmly and effectively addressed. These challenges include mismanagement of available scarce public resources, partly due to lack of preparedness for the job, inefficiency and widespread corruption, delays in disbursement of funds from the state to county governments, and negative politics. Other challenges include new taxation rules, unharmonized standards, conflict of interest during the budget approval process, as well as inconsistencies and lack of effective coordination between the state and county governments. Being a key development expert in your respective discipline, what advice would you give the government on how to effectively address devolution challenges to ensure success for the transformation initiative? We have other challenges that require your input and advice on how they should be effectively addressed, and these include input intensification and subsidy. Use of subsidies enable newer and modern technology to reach smallholder farmers, which is crucial in improving agricultural productivity and farmers' livelihoods. In your view, is the government's goal of using subsidies to improve farm productivity and farmers' livelihoods being achieved? How successful are Kenya's subsidy programs, and what adjustments would you recommend? If I were privileged enough to be a man of the caller, ladies and gentlemen, I would say, speak now or forever keep your silence. Smallholder farmers' access to technology is crucial in transforming the agriculture sector. But do they get extension advice in real time where they need it for decision making? What innovations propel smallholder farmers towards higher productivity and incomes? Which innovations do you recommend for upscaling and outscaling? I want to conclude by asking a few questions to the conference organizers and professionals who are represented here today. And the first question is, as a country, have we made substantial new investments to build infrastructure that can withstand floods, or to improve irrigation to make agriculture less vulnerable to drought? Have we substantially changed the patterns of Kenya's smallholder agriculture by making it more resilient to climate change, variability, and predictability? Are we managing our shared water and other resources in the most efficient and effective manner? Are there resources that would be better managed at the national level to enable Kenya achieve its goal of improving food supplies faster? Do smallholder farmers in Kenya have adequate access to science and knowledge to inform their responses to the impacts of climate change? And let me add here that although the Kenya Meteorological Services regularly issue seasonal climate forecasts, such as the recent one on El Nino, rarely is climate forecast meaningfully integrated in decision-making, despite its great utility in sensitive sectors of the economy, such as agriculture. Coelho and Costa attribute this partly to climate science used in production of seasonal climate forecast, 1 to 6 months at sparse partial resolution. You know, they are using, they cover an area of 100 to 200 kilometers. The average temperatures and rainfall, and then they use these to predict the weather for a specific place, and that results into some faults, some problems. So these two others also attribute this problem to system science, which investigates impacts of climate and decision making. Efforts to improve the quality of forecast by using regional climate models is a step in the right direction. but we need to improve decision-making in a way that gives confidence, that gives small-scale farmers confidence in the accuracy of weather forecast. We must at all costs, ladies and gentlemen, minimize politics in a seasonal climate forecast, where politicians use climate forecast to lobby for relief food or money that is later used for unintended purposes, rather than using the available scarce public resources to improve agriculture. My last question is, are we conducting, we as researchers, as academicians, are we conducting adequate and appropriate research to understand regional and local variations in Kenya's climate and sharing this information with those who need it most? I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that by the time you leave the conference, you'll have gained something useful that you can use to bring about the most needed transformation of Kenya's smallholder agriculture. May God bless you. Thank you.
Mwangi, for those remarks. And now I'm going to call upon our guest speaker for today, USAID, Mr. Mike Jones, to come and address us. Mike, please. Thank you.
Representing the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Ana Onyango, Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs, the Vice Chancellor Designate, Professor Munya, Deputy Vice Chancellors, Director of Tegemeo Institute, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Mabibi na mabwana. Hamjambo. Okay. Habari za asubuhi. Okay, asante. Okay. I'm honored to be here today to represent the Mission Director of USAID, Ms. Karen Freeman. She regrets that she couldn't be here today. She had a urgent meeting with development partners. This event is the 12th conference since the inception of Tegemeo Institute. And I congratulate the Vice Chancellor Designate, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, Director and staff at Tegemeo for organizing this important conference on transforming smallholder agriculture in Kenya in the context of climate change, devolution, and increasing land constraints. Not an easy task. At the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, we're extremely proud of the partnership we've had with Tegemeo Institute and for the work that they do to inform agricultural policy in Kenya through evidence-based policy analysis. USAID has been the key development partner for Tegemeo since its inception. And over the last 20 years, Tegemeo Institute has grown from just a project to a highly respected policy research institute with a focus on agricultural policy research that impacts millions. Collaboration between Tegemeo Institute, Edgerton University, and Michigan State University, as well as other international institutions, has strengthened Tegemeo's policy research and analysis capacity. Tegemeo's work developing and demonstrating demand for locally driven policy research and analysis is setting a precedent throughout the globe, actually. Tegemeo's work supports two main challenges facing Kenya, the way we look at it: and indeed, these can be applied to the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. First, to foster sustained growth of national economies for the long term, 20 to 30 years. And second, how do we attain food security, eliminate poverty and hunger, and improve nutrition? We all recognize, as was noted by our colleagues here today, farm sizes are declining as population increases. Further, only about 20%, as our colleagues said, of the land in Kenya is suitable for highly productive farming, and maximum yields have not been reached in these areas. There's considerable potential for increases in productivity, as we all know, through the right technology, support in information, extension, and financial services. I think we all know in this room that Kenya can ensure its own food security. To do that, we'll have to employ innovative and efficient ways of using the available land to meet the growing needs for food. We need affordable innovations and technologies that smallholder farmers can employ to increase productivity and consequently food supplies and outcomes. USAID has been at the forefront in supporting agriculture and private sector development in Kenya for decades. We've been proud to provide support for cutting-edge agricultural research like we discussed in this conference, innovation, policy research and analysis, as well as development of markets and strengthening the private sector to provide services, markets, and an enabling environment in which smallholder farmers can succeed. USAID has supported dairy, horticulture, and maize subsectors in the past through programs you may know, such as the Kenya Horticulture Competitiveness Program, the Kenya Maize Development Program, and Kenya Dairy Sector Competitiveness Program. Currently, we've expanded our work in all of these areas under President Obama's Feed the Future initiative. Feed the Future is a U.S. government global hunger and food security initiative through which the United States is working with partner countries, governments, development partners, and other stakeholders to tackle the root causes of poverty and hunger. Feed the Future is helping Kenya capitalize on opportunities in agriculture to meet food security and nutrition challenges. The goal of Feed the Future in Kenya is twofold: reduce poverty by 20% and reduce the prevalence and number of children suffering from stunting in Feed the Future target regions by 20%. These are big goals. To achieve these goals, Feed the Future is making key investments to promote value chain growth and diversification, increase incomes, enhance food security, increase resilience to climatic and economic shocks and stresses, and improve the nutritional status of women and children. The conference agenda over the next 2 days is loaded with issues of great interest and importance for all that I've just described. It's my hope that we discussed during these 2-day program will help us achieve the goals of improved incomes and food and nutrition security. So once again, let me commend the leadership of Edgerton University and Tegemeo for its commitment to knowledge development and capacity building in the agricultural and rural sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making time to participate in this important conference, and I wish for very fruitful deliberations over the next 2 days. Thank you. Asante ni sana.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike Jones. Thank you for giving us that talk. And as we proceed with this session, I would ask you to start thinking if you have any question in between. After a while, I'm going to ask if you have anything to ask our speakers. For now, I'm going to ask Madam Dr. Mary Madenge, the director of Tegemeo Institute, to give us an overview of this, and then we will ask our rep for the Ministry of Agriculture to give a talk. Research and regulations. So, Madam, we are going to ask you to give us the few hints about research and regulations going on in the ministry. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. Before I read the Cabinet Secretary's speech, I'll just say a few words on my own behalf, because Tegemeo Institute and Egerton have been long-time partners in our agricultural development. I've worked quite closely with many of the staff, both at Tegemeo and Egerton, and some were even my colleagues, like Professor Mwangi, were some of the people who orientated us in when we joined the service. I found him at Kilimo House. Dr. Kilungo also was a colleague. Dr. Nyikal was also a colleague. So Kilimo has been a good breeding ground for policy research scientists, and I'm happy to be able to associate with them over the years in terms of addressing issues of agricultural development, both at the very rural level, the days when we had districts, and even up to now, when we are now talking about policy, agricultural policy as a national function in the Ministry of Agriculture. So I'm quite happy to be here this morning to talk about issues of development. I will not subscribe to what Professor Mwangi said about holding our silence. We have to keep on talking and dialoguing to be able to get a grip on this animal we call agricultural development, because this is where many of our people, the majority of the population, derive their livelihoods. But what we need to address is the quality of the livelihoods that they are deriving from agriculture. And so this conference, which is the 12th conference, we want to say this is not the end, but just a continuation of the dialogue and the talking that we have done over the years. Kenyans are known to come up with very good policies, but I think the weakest link is in the implementation of those policies. And this is known, that other countries will come, pick our policies, dust them off the shelf where they are, and go out and implement them and achieve much more than what we set out to achieve when we formulated those policies. So I think the challenge is on us. We don't have a lack of policies to implement. It is how to implement them that is really a challenge. And I think Tegemeo should take that challenge and be able to guide us in which direction we need to move to be able to effectively implement those beautiful policies that we come up with. There's a joke in our circles about the agriculture sector development strategy, which was a response to the Vision 2030 that recognized agriculture as a key to unlocking the economic pillar of the country. That when Dr. Akin, who I know you all know, became the Minister for Agriculture in Nigeria, he took the ASDS, and he did a bit of cut and paste and brought it to Parliament in Nigeria. And they embarked on implementing to transform the agriculture sector in Nigeria. But in Parliament, in the haste to cut and paste the ASDS, they forgot to remove Kenya shillings. So the parliamentarians asked, are we now going to be working in Nigeria in Kenya shillings? And of course, this has been the joke, that we have very good policies and strategies, but other people implemented them and succeeded in transforming their agriculture sectors. So let us not continue to be the butt of these jokes, but let us now really think about how we can implement the good policies that we come up with. And I do believe that we shall succeed. But I think in our mindsets, we need to think about a paradigm shift, because smallholder agriculture is not going away very soon. And it is, after all, the way of life. But what paradigm shift gear can we move into so that we are able to succeed in smallholder agriculture? Because I believe it can be done. The brains in this auditorium this morning attest to the fact that it can be done. So let us work together in partnership. You have seen that USAID have been able to partner with Egerton to bring Tegemeo this far. And so it is in partnerships that we are going to be able to move together. No particular sector can go it alone. But if we join hands and bring our ideas to the table, then we shall be able to address the most pressing challenges, some of which we are going to be addressing these next 2 days. So now that I have said my bit, let me read the Cabinet Secretary's speech and hope that it will be adequate to jog our minds to be able to address the issues which are on the table. I'll read. The Vice Chancellor of Egerton University, Professor James Twitoek, the Vice Chancellor Designate, Professor Rose Mwanya, and congratulations on that achievement. You can see the girl power around the table. The Director, USAID Kenya Mission, Representative Mike Jones, Director Tegemeo Institute, who we have done a lot of activities with, Dr. Mary Mathenge, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to join you today during the opening ceremony of this important conference on transforming smallholder agriculture in Kenya in the context of climate change, devolution, and rising land constraints. This is a theme which resonates well with our transformative agenda, which we have adopted as a Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, and Fisheries. I'm happy to note that this gathering brings together stakeholders who are key in charting a way forward for this important sector. I understand that this is the 12th conference since the inception of Tegemeo Institute of Agricultural Policy and Development of Egerton University. I therefore congratulate the VC of Egerton University and the team, the director and staff at Tegemeo Institute for successfully hosting this conference. The theme is very timely, coming at a time when the agriculture sector continues to face increasing challenges, some of which have persisted for a long time, while others have emerged in the recent past. It is in line with the goals of the Agriculture Sector Development Strategy and also captures the aspirations of the National Climate Change Response Strategy 2010 and the National Climate Change Action Plan 2013 to 2017. I am informed that researchers at Tegemeo Institute have been researching on some of the challenges facing the agriculture sector in Kenya. The research by Tegemeo looks at strategies to improve and transform the smallholder sector given the prevailing challenges. And I would urge the Institute to become more aggressive in following up the recommendations that they do give and the findings they get from the research that they carry out. During this conference, the research results will be shared with a view to eliciting debate and feedback on alternative policy options. We in the government find this kind of fora where information and views are exchanged to be very helpful, especially when there are clear targets to be met and several options for overcoming the challenges of the day. Allow me to mention some of the issues facing the food and agriculture sectors in our country and which should be encompassed within the theme of this conference. We are well aware of the challenges posed by climate variability and change, particularly the frequency of occurrence in the recent past. In Kenya, this phenomenon is already unmistakable. It is indeed real and continues to intensify, as is evident from countrywide temperature increases, as well as rainfall irregularity, mainly resulting in more frequent and prolonged droughts, given the variability and unreliability. Due to our reliance on weather, agricultural production will bear the brunt of this variability and change. This calls for mitigation and adaptation strategies geared towards enhancing resilience of the farmers and ensuring they engage in agricultural activities that sustain the environment and improve their incomes. It is imperative that we ask ourselves a few questions. Number one, on what are these innovations that smallholders can adopt to deal with the challenges? Secondly, where does policy come in and how will it be employed to assist farmers? And thirdly, what are the requisite synergies that we can build together to bring long-lasting impact? In the area of devolution, we know that the majority of functions in the agriculture sector are now being implemented by the county governments, being only the formulation of policy, agricultural policy, that remains with the national government, and the issue of quality and standards. This transfer of activities to the county level is indeed a step forward towards bringing key agricultural services and support closer to the farming community. It is therefore important that we reflect on the status of the agriculture sector in the context of devolution as pertains to the funding for the sector, the implementation of policies under the devolved system of government, as well as challenges that the sector has faced since devolution took root in the counties and in the country. However, more importantly, I propose that in order to move agriculture forward, it is imperative that we reflect and focus on the opportunities that have come with devolution and the lessons that have been learned so far. These lessons are critical in shaping the actions that we shall take in the short and long term, and really does call for a paradigm shift in our thinking. With regard to land, we are well aware of the declining land per capita due to the increased Kenyan population, and this definitely poses a challenge to a sector that is aimed at growing by at least 10% annually to lift Kenya to middle income status by 2030. This trend in land sizes, coupled with cases of arable land put under non-agricultural uses, will continue to hamper the growth we desire to achieve in the sector. In order to achieve the requisite growth, smallholder production, which accounts for the majority of agricultural production, needs to transform to cope with the changing production and marketing environments. But how can the sector achieve this transformation? What are the institutional and policy reforms that are needed today for the Kenyan smallholder agriculture? There are three issues of climate change, devolution, and limited land sizes that greatly influence the ability of households to improve incomes and meet their food and nutrition security needs. As a government, therefore, we continue to put in place strategies and programs that will improve livelihoods of Kenyans in the face of these issues, which, taken together, bring a very complex dynamics for the sector. In particular, the government seeks to increase its spending to agriculture to 10% of its budget, focus mainly on expanding irrigated land and improved rural infrastructure. This 10% is a figure that was declared by the heads of state and government in Maputo in 2010. And I think as a country, we are still not very close to achieving this 10% expenditure. The government is aware that to meet the stated goals, then this increased spending in agricultural development, especially in the area of research and development, extension, and in value addition, is what would bear fruits. The county governments, therefore, have a big role to play in prioritizing agriculture in terms of funding, particularly in areas where agriculture is the backbone of the county's economy. And many counties, agriculture is the backbone of the economy. In the past, the government recognized the need for support for many smallholder farmers who are caught in the vicious poverty trap. Such require investments and policies that will alter the environment or landscape in which they operate. In recognition of this, the government provided targeted subsidies that are directed at addressing issues of food insecurity and malnutrition. I do believe that there are lessons that can be drawn from such subsidy programs to ensure that smallholder agriculture continues to grow. And here is another challenge for Tegemeo. Are these subsidy programs well informed? What did inform them at the beginning? In addition, the government continues to put in place other short and long-term measures to help consumers and producers alike mitigate against or adapt to the effects of prolonged drought and other weather-related phenomenon, including El Nino, that is expected to adversely affect some areas of the country. These measures include provision of relief food and other emergency supplies, provision of inputs such as improved drought-tolerant seeds, among others. the government is also in the forefront of partnering with private sector in designing and providing insurance cover against weather-related crop failure and loss of livestock. The ministry has already brought to Parliament a warehouse receipt systems bill, which has gone to its second reading. We've had a lot of discussions on this and even had a meeting with the Parliamentary Committee of Agriculture recently to be able to discuss the best format of enacting this bill. This will improve grain marketing and provide a structured way of building stocks, which would then work into a commodity exchange system. We've recently had a benchmarking trip to India, and I believe the lessons learned will be incorporated in this bill on warehouse receipt systems. Finally, I'd like to just say that the government is cognizant of the importance of policy research in formulation of better policies and in monitoring and evaluating the effectiveness of the diverse menu of.
The question is, what percentage of women own the community lands? And sometimes I talk with the community just to find out how they feel. If you say you want a piece of land from your father's
practitioners to support and partner with Tegemeo in achieving long-lasting solutions. Our appeal to policy researchers such as Tegemeo Institute is to take cue from the economists who drove the green revolution in Asia by identifying and advocating on practical policies that can really work in our context. Clear and implementable policy research findings on how to deal with challenges arising from climate change, limited land sizes, and devolution are timely and would go a long way in informing policy and planning of future programs. In the ministry, we are also in the process of putting in place a Kenya Census of Agriculture, which has never been done before. We are the only country with Burundi, imagine, who have never done a census of agriculture to be able to inform the programs that we put in place. So again, I would appeal to Egerton to jump on this vehicle and see if we can come up with a comprehensive data compendium that will be able to inform future programs in the agriculture sector. I wish you fruitful deliberations, and I look forward to sharing your policy options that will arise from the conference aimed at overcoming challenges facing the important sector of our economy. And with these remarks now, it is my pleasure to declare the Tegemeo Conference 2015 officially open. Thank you.